We're here.
Alrighty.
Welcome back. David and John on conversation or maybe on conversational leadership. As always, we put not a lot, but a few minutes
Not a
of
lot at
texting and
all.
thoughts into what might be a conversation for today. And your thought was you received an email saying, what makes a meaningful conversation?
Hmm.
And I've certainly had questions or thoughts myself on meaningful conversations, impactful conversations. Maybe I try to stay a little bit short of difficult conversations or, you know, hard ones. So yeah, let's go with that framing of meaningful conversations. And I actually wrote down, I've got some notes here, about 10 or
Okay.
12 different little
I've got a
ideas from
few.
me.
I give it some thought earlier, and I had some stuff in my head that I've completely forgotten, but it will emerge as we talk, I'm sure.
Perfect. Do you want me to start with a few or do you want to go first? Who
Yeah,
goes
go on. Go,
first?
go on. Yeah, far away.
All right, I'll go with my very first one, which I don't want to say is like the most important, but it definitely popped up as soon as you texted me, and I read it. The very first thought I w had was similar to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. It was the old question of who gets to decide it was meaningful or it is meaningful. Is
Yeah.
it one person? Is it a couple of people, like a subset of the group? Is it the whole group? What like where does meaningful come from? And I would even dare say, what is the meaning of meaningful? I don't know if that's unfair or too abstract, but it felt important to me.
Hmm.
I think I've been part of conversations where I thought they were meaningful and other people didn't. Or the opposite. It was meaningful to someone else, and then I actually feel a little embarrassed when someone says, "Oh, that we had a really meaningful conversation." And I think, "Oh,
No,
I
you
didn't
didn't.
quite notice." So yeah, who gets to decide it was meaningful and what does that mean to
I
them?
think this just picking up on that is that meaning is a personal attribute, and that something can mean something to me and not to you.
Hmm,
So I would say two people could have a conversation and one people could find meaning in it and the other might not.
sure.
That's my immediate thought on it. It's a personal, subjective judgment, isn't it? There's no absolute here. There's no we can't list 10 attributes, and if you ticked 8 of them, it would be meaningful.
Exactly. And so I think that goes to one of these other thoughts I had, which was levels of meaning, which reminds me of Dr.
Hmm.
Ed Shine's levels of conversation. I think you could have I don't know, extremely meaningful conversation, a mildly meaningful, and there was a
Yeah,
moment of
yeah, you
meaning
can.
making.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't have to be, it's not like a binary on or off
No, it's
meaningful
not. No,
conversation.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And one of my first, I'll let you come in a minute, but one of my first thoughts was uh, Theodore Zeldin's favorite
Yep.
quotation.
Yep.
The kind of conversation I like is one where we're prepared to emerge a slightly different person.
Mhm.
So my thought was, okay, so a meaningful conversation is one where I get to emerge a slightly different person.
I
Um,
think that I'm looking at my notes, that quote almost covers at an abstract level or a generic way, pretty much all of my thoughts. Like, if you're willing to emerge a different person, then potentially there's some meaning in there.
Potentially, yes. Yes, if you're willing to emerge, but because you won't necessarily emerge. It's only
Yeah.
when you actually emerge a different person. And
Mm.
actually, interestingly, maybe sometimes you don't even realize that you've emerged a little differently.
Yeah. It may not be an immediate, like during the conversation or immediately following the conversation. It might be a week, a month, a year later that you look back and that was a meaningful
Yeah, yeah.
conversation. I've definitely had workshops like that.
What else do you have on your list there?
All right, I'll do so. Yeah, the who decides Ed Shine's levels. I wrote a question that matters. That obviously comes from the Knowledge Cafe and the stuff we just
Oh,
did
okay.
yesterday. I'm not sure about that all the way, but I do think I think whether I'm kind of assuming the meaning of conversation is between two people. Let's kind of keep it at just two as
Yes,
opposed to a group or something.
keep it between two.
Simple for now. So two people having a
Yeah.
conversation. I think the question at hand or the conversational topic needs to, I don't know, I'm going to struggle with this, almost relatively clear between the two people. Or if it's not, we're both aiming to get clarity first on what is the question we're discussing here, or what is the topic we're discussing. And I bring
Okay.
that up because I think you and I have talked about this too. I think it's too often that two people are in a conversation and they're not in the same conversation.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So if there's not like some shared clarity, there's not some
Been there.
shared questions, shared topic, I think it'll be more difficult to have a meaningful conversation.
Mm. Kind of interesting is we have conversations at times about politics. And in some ways, they're a little bit of a rant about what's going on in the world. Are they meaningful? Do we come away? I mean, at one level, it's about a serious topic. Is politics serious? Okay, that's another question. Um, but if we're just having a little rant about it, and we are pretty much in agreement, in terms of our political leanings, probably not that meaningful.
Not in my, I would put
We've
it
not come
pretty
away
low.
with anything new. We've not changed in any way. We've just enjoyed a rant about what is maybe an important or serious topic that we've got no control over.
I'll be a bit vulnerable here and say when we have our little political talks or talk about war and stuff,
Mhm.
um, I find I'm more leaning against it usually, and I find you more centered on seeing both sides.
Yeah.
And so I often walk away, it's a compliment to you, having learned something, having thought about it a little bit differently, but in the politest way to you, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I don't know that I walk away going to others saying, "Oh, I had the most meaningful conversation with David today." I don't, a bit of learning, but
Yeah. You know something, in some ways, I'm reassessing my view about it only being meaningful to one person.
okay.
For a conversation to be really meaningful, you need to feel that you've changed or taken something on board yourself. But really,
Mm,
you need to feel the same about the other person.
mm.
So again, it's this spectrum. So maybe somewhere like at the 80% mark, it's maybe just you, but a really, really meaningful conversation kind of shifts over closer to the
And
100%
I love
mark.
that you touched your chest because, yeah, I think this is one of the things that I think you and I we sort of skirt around it a little bit. Maybe we've even tried to directly talk about it, but like the thinking and the feeling. I think for
Uh-huh.
me, if it's intellectual stimulation only, the likelihood of it being a meaningful conversation is pretty low.
Okay.
Maybe, and I'm sure I could go if you really challenge, hey, think of a time where somebody made you smarter. Sure, that's probably meaningful, but if I if you just say, hey, John, what are the most meaningful conversations? It's much more likely that my thinking and my feeling shifted.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes we'll have a conversation and you'll learn something that maybe intellectually is really quite stimulating and exciting,
Mm,
but not necessarily meaningful.
mhm.
It's more nuanced than I really thought.
Mm. What's
You
popping
can,
up? What are some nuances for you?
well, just that nuance that maybe for it to be truly meaningful, both people need to feel moved, impacted in some way. But let's say we're talking and you tell me about some ancient philosopher or scientist or whatever, and you give me a really deep insight, maybe into humanity, for
Mhm.
example. Um, yeah, so I've received from you, say, a new piece of not knowledge, but a new piece of information. But it's an exciting one. It's intellectually fun, and I know I'm going to go away and think about it. Um, I'm not totally sure that's necessarily meaningful.
Hmm.
It's maybe it is. If it impacts my thinking, if I go away, even if it's got no practical relevance to anything, but it impacts my thinking, it impacts who I am, or it impacts my feelings or leanings towards something, then yeah, you could say it was meaningful.
You say the word impact in there, and I didn't put enough thought into this, but it did cross my mind. What's the Venn diagram between a meaningful conversation and an impactful conversation? Because I do think,
And a real conversation.
and a real conversation, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you
Because
have a meaningful conversation with a picture, John?
yeah, well, you know, I probably can. Yeah.
I dug out, I told you, what was it? Oh, what's the name of the film? Got the name of the film. It's where the middle-aged woman is having a conversation with the wall and later with a rock on the beach. I dug it up. I dug it up for you. I found an illegal download, and I was going to give you a clip of the little bits where she's talking to the wall, and where she's Shirley Valentine was the film. Absolutely,
Mm.
Shirley Valentine and Collins. What's the actress's name? Forgotten. But
I like tennis a lot. Side story for you. I've always liked tennis, and you know, one of the my favorite tennis jokes is no matter how much I practice, I'll never be as good as a wall. And so, yeah, I think yeah, you can play tennis with a wall, and you can have a conversation with a wall.
I must find those clips and do those clips because they would be great to use in our workshop.
Yeah. All right, so then here's just see if this sparks anything else for you. I've got safety and courage because you know me, we hear so much about psychological safety and so little about psychological courage. And the point to me there is
Ah,
we
yeah.
can do everything we want to make people feel safe, but there are certain genders, ages, races, there are individuals that will never be safe. So it takes in certain times. So it takes courage to know that I'm not safe and still speak your truth, bring your faith, bring your hope, that kind of stuff. So for me, very high likelihood of safety and courage need to be present if it's going to be the sort of high level, meaningful we're talking about.
Okay. So are you saying that it's more likely to be meaningful if you're having a conversation around a politically or emotionally or racially charged issue?
Not really. I was just saying, yeah, those are some options. I'm more saying, if I can't bring, you've said this before, you've got different words for it. You call it something like unfiltered,
Uncensored.
uncensored. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That's
always say, Theodore Zout, I give Theodore Zoden's credit and then say, on the other hand, the sort of conversation I like is one where I don't have to censor anything that I say. Even if I say something politically incorrect, the other person knows me well enough to know that's not me. And they can just raise an eyebrow and I can realize
you've
what
said or
I've
done
said
something.
without being too embarrassed.
That goes back to like intent and impact. Like you're not meaning to do it, but it lands that way. And so I think, you know, we talk about that one a lot. I think, um, I don't know about this one. This didn't even make it to my list, but yeah, there are so many people that don't care about their impact. They're just like, that's not my problem. You're like,
Yeah,
that's not
oh
who I am. That's
yes.
not what I meant. If that's how you took it, then you need to fix yourself.
Yeah.
No, it's relational here. So you need to care about your impact. But I actually think it's separate. I think you could have a meaningful conversation, sadly, even with someone that didn't care about their impact. Potentially,
Yeah.
potentially even more because they just said stuff. So yeah, safety and courage, diverse perspectives and feelings, I think is kind of obvious. Listening, I wrote here, listening that changes thinking and feeling, which is interesting. And not talking, not content, not words, but listening that changes thinking and feeling. And right next to that, I put reflection and pause because as you can imagine, when I heard the question meaningful, I brought to mind three, four, five, six meaningful conversations. And I know then this could be a me thing. So this is a kind of a question for you. Um, in those meaningful conversations for me, I need a lot of space. I need more than 5 or 6 seconds between comments. I need 30, 60 seconds. You say something and
to
then it
reflect.
sits for a minute. And then I say something and it sits for a minute. I don't know if that's acting or
A
dramatic
minute's a long time.
or what, but it's a long, it's so I put reflection and pause because it goes back to I'm not I guess I am censoring my words, but what I'm doing is if I say this, how's that going to land? Well, let me word it this way. Well, what's my real intent here? Oh, what is my Oh, that goes back 50 years, right? And so I'm doing
Yeah.
that, and it takes me a minute to get to my words.
But you never, I mean, I've never seen you do that. I've never done it. Most people don't do it. They reply even if they just ramble to give themselves some time. They're rambling, and at the same time they're doing that processing that you're talking about because we feel uncomfortable with that silence.
And that's where maybe I'm talking about the bell curve of like the top 1% of most meaningful conversations I've ever been lucky or privileged to have. They look like that. But the in the
Okay.
middle, the vast majority of the meaningful conversations, yeah. Okay, that's a fair point. I'm probably calling out sort of my extreme top level, most meaningful conversation, like the most meaningful conversations with these kinds of thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. As we say, it's a spectrum. But the one thing that went to my mind very early on when you were talking there was that for me, often the most meaningful conversations are ones where the other person does have a different opinion to me,
Yeah.
different perspective, and
Yeah.
maybe one that I haven't heard before, or one that really does go against my beliefs, because then
Mhm.
I'll go away and I will think about it at length. And yeah, that's clearly going to have an impact on me.
It's so funny how these things flow because literally my very next one on my list is I wrote overtime, comma, not just one session. And what I
What did
mean
you
by
mean by
that
that?
is, and I think this fits beautifully with what we talk about in conversational leadership. It's not just about having better conversations. It's not just about this
Mm,
conversation right now. It's
yes.
about seeing life as a conversation. And so a meaningful conversation is not just you and I for 15 minutes on YouTube. It's the 15 minutes today and 15 minutes last week and 15 minutes next week. And over 10 years, we had a meaningful conversation.
You see, you and I have been having conversations now for must be 10 years,
Mhm.
and it makes the conversations easier because you don't have to complete every sentence because I know in a few words you can convey to me um, so much because I know you. Whereas when you don't know somebody terribly well, they need to speak at length to for you to thoroughly understand their meaning.
I do have a question for you too, is so I've been in therapy for a long, long time. And some therapy sessions are more meaningful than others.
Hmm.
But isn't that I like it as an example because I think it probably is going to go against a lot of the stuff, a lot of the assumptions we make because I think you can have a pretty meaningful conversation in therapy and the other person is in a role, the other person is being paid, the other person is not sharing anything about themselves.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So like, isn't
Hmm.
that is that a fun little challenge for a second to say, uh, I think it's actually very possible to have a meaningful conversation where really only one person is is getting the
Yeah,
meaning.
yeah, yeah.
I
But
think it might be sad but true.
if you're being drawn out in your thinking and you're reflecting and just saying, yeah, that can be very meaningful.
And so I think that's a lot of the predictable things of we're both involved, we're both being changed. I think there's an easy challenge to that. Um, I wrote a couple more. I wrote no, I think you know this about me. No sarcasm, no cynicism.
Oh, okay.
I don't all the way believe that, but I wrote it because it's important to me because it goes back to like the safety and the trust and the if I have to even do a microsecond of were you joking? Was that serious or wait, wait. And if you can play that game with me that you say something, but you're like, no, 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 I was just joking. Uh, I don't know. Right. My chance of a meaningful like yeah, it shifted a lot. And I wrote what I really wrote was no sarcasm, no cynicism, but hope and faith. Like
Sarcasm, cynicism.
I come in almost willing or wanting to emerge a different person.
Mm.
It's almost like saying curiosity, but in a very different way.
When s- when somebody, it's interesting because you talk about feelings. I don't know why I go back to it. I'm going back to the job I was in 30 years ago, and I can remember this situation, and I can remember somebody saying something that, and it was sarcasm, aimed at me, and I was really, like, I didn't show it at the time, but I was really upset about it, and it keeps coming back to my mind. I got no idea what he said at all today. I can just remember the feeling,
Mm,
which is kind of a shame in a way, because if I can remember what he said, I could probably process it. Um, but sometimes when people do say something with a cutting edge, you think about it, you reflect on it far more than you might otherwise.
yeah,
Um, and of course, what you do is you replay the conversation. This is this is the witty or the put down reply I should have come up with. And you wish you could go back and
almost like
replay
you're
it.
preparing for the next. If this happens again, I'll be ready.
If it happens again, yes, that's right. Yeah.
For sure, we have to bring
I
in.
think, I mean, I certainly do a lot of that with conversations where the conversation doesn't go where, maybe quite where I'd like it to go. And I think, okay, what are the rules?
Mm, mm.
What have I learned? What shouldn't I do next time?
For sure, we have to bring in Maya Angelou's quote, right? Of you won't remember what they said or what they did, but how they made you feel.
How they made you feel, yeah.
That's what you're saying there. All right, so I've only got two more. I wrote
Me
I wrote
too.
the obvious one. Shift in meaning, shift in understanding, shift in sensing. So I put meaning making, sense making, and
Uh-huh.
understanding
Yeah.
all together. I think that's obvious. I wrote change in relationship, being heard, being
Oh, okay. That's a
respected,
good one.
being trusted, being engaged. I wrote those.
Yes.
Um, I think those are something. And then I wrote one with a question mark. My last one, I wrote resolution question mark. And what I meant by that was like,
Okay.
does a meaningful
And
conversation have to resolve something, or to kind of the point you've made most of the time, like, can it just spark and challenge me? Does the meaning have to be in solving something? Probably not, but I don't know. What do you think?
no, it doesn't. I mean, can resolve something, or it could even make the tension worse.
Mm,
It's the difference, isn't it? It's I think of Gregory Bateson's definition of information, a difference that makes a difference. So
yeah.
maybe you might say meaningful information is a difference that makes a difference. Something that makes a difference in some way. Actually, that's exactly what Gregory Bateson's saying when he defines information, because what he's saying is if it doesn't make any difference, it's not information,
Mm,
which is a lovely way of looking at it.
mm.
Um, and the vast majority of our conversations, and not ours personally, but conversations in life, don't make any difference whatsoever. So, in that sense, um, they're not information.
And I think we've kind of talked about like uh, how, what is the appropriate percent? Should 100% of our conversations make a difference in our life, or how much difference? Or should it only be 5 or 10% of our conversations? How much can you really handle is maybe. Would you, well, because I've had those phases in life where everything I was doing for a few months was life-changing and meaningful. And I'm not sure I could handle
That
living an
all
entire
the
life that
time.
way.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it's kind of nice to
Meaningful
talk
in
about,
moderation.
yeah, it'd kind of be nice to talk about the weather and sports and, you know.
which
Your
is
commute.
what we humans do. Yeah. Well, that was an interesting little parlay.
Sure.
I'm not too sure we've could we write down a one-line definition other than that. So if it makes a difference, it's meaningful. There we go.
There's a list of a few ideas.
But again, I think I often say is it's interesting because I came into this conversation thinking I wasn't too sure where it was going to go, which is what I like about our conversations. We haven't really pre-planned them. And maybe when we look back at them in 6 months' time, we will realize that we're talking gibberish. But there's always more. When you have that conversation in your head, there's sort of so much. But when you have a conversation with somebody else, all of a sudden it expands. You realize there are many more perspectives and nuances to an issue than first come to mind.
If you're open to it, yep.
If you're open to it, yeah, which is that's the big thing.
Hmm.
Um, being open.
All right, then closing thought
Closing thought on being open.
on being open or on meaningful conversations. If there's one thing, what would you say about
I,
meaning?
I like that.
What?
I like that little insight about Gregory Bateson and the difference that makes a difference. That's the one thing I'm taking away. So, John, has this been a meaningful conversation? Are we going to go away a slightly different person, or in a few days' time, or a few hours' time, even, will we have forgotten all about this, or will there be something lingering deep in our psyche that is different?
Yes and no. I'm not sure these 15, 20 minutes carried meaningful weight for me, but
Mhm.
as part of our conversation about conversational leadership, it's a
Okay.
piece, it's a drop in the bigger ocean. So yes, from the bigger picture,
So that's
no from today.
so the ocean has just risen by a billionth of a millimeter.
Uh-huh, yes.
Okay, let's stop the show.
All right, sounds good.